Hello and welcome back to the Frugal Spender. My name is Brian and today I'm going to review the new kid on the banking block, Starling. So let's start by finding out who Starling are. Now, Starling are what is known as a challenger bank. Now, a challenger bank is a smaller bank that is challenging the status quo of what the big high street banks are doing. Starling was started in 2014 by Anne Bowden, who has a lot of experience in the banking world. Most notably, she was the COO of Allied Irish Bank. Now, Starling are a fully licensed and regulated bank, and up to £85,000 of your money is protected by the FCSC compensation scheme. Now, as of January 2021, Starling state that they have over 2 million customers, showing that although they are quite new, they are growing rapidly. Now, Starling states on their website that they have the security of past banks with the heart of a future bank. They claim to have no rip-off fees and that they listen to their customers. They're also committed to taking an ethical approach to banking, with gestures such as planting a tree every time a customer is referred to them. So last year, I actually swapped my account from one of the big four high street banks to Starling. And I was pretty nervous as I knew nothing about challenger banks and thought that the big banks actually were safer. Despite that, I took the plunge and gave it a go. And in this video, I will go through the experience that I've had and what I've learned so far, including pros and cons, what I believe of Starling Bank. And at the end, I'll give a rating of overall what I think the Starling experience has been like as a customer. So what types of accounts do Starling have? Well, they have a personal account, a joint account, and also business accounts. They've also recently added a teen account for kids aged 16 to 17 and a Starling Kite account for children. Now, you can have all of these accounts if you wish, and once you have one of them, the process of getting another is considerably quicker. What about fees? Well, there are no fees for the personal, joint and standard business account, but last year Starling released the option of a £7 a month business toolkit. This feature includes creating, sending, tracking invoices, automating expenses, recording VAT, pretty much everything you need to do if you're self-employed and use a business account. Now, that won't apply should you not be self-employed. There are no fees to withdraw cash, including overseas, which makes Starling quite an attractive bank if you like to use your card abroad regularly. Okay, so how do you set up an account with Starling? Well, the process of doing this, setting up an account with Starling, it's very quick actually. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to do from beginning to end. To set up an account, you're going to need a smartphone and an internet connection, as well as a valid photo ID, such as a passport or a UK driving licence. Firstly, you will need to download the app from Google Play Store if you're Android, or Apple App Store if you're Apple. You will be asked some details, including your name, address, telephone number and date of birth. You will then need to take a photo of your ID, as well as record a quick selfie video with different angles of yourself saying a phrase, just to prove that it is in fact you setting up your account and not somebody else. Now, the bank will then review your application and run some background checks, including credit checks. If you're successful, you'll receive a card within 3 to 5 working days. Now, mine actually came in 2 days, which I was pretty impressed with. Your card will come in a premium looking card holder, which looks very sleek and professional. You know, I was actually really impressed with the packaging, and they clearly put a lot of effort into the presentation of the card. Now, Starling use a switch service that takes all the hassle out of swapping your bank, and I'd never used this service before, and I was actually quite unsure whether this tool was going to work properly or not. However, the process was pretty seamless, to be honest, and the app notified me every step of the way when they transferred my direct debits from my previous bank, and just liaised with my old bank to redirect any sort of payments that were going into that bank into my new bank. And they claim that this happens for up to a year, even once your old bank is actually closed. When you get your cards in the post, they will look like one of these two. Now, this is the business account and that is the personal or joint account. And as you can see, they are MasterCards. Now, before you even get these cards, you can actually set the numbers up in your mobile wallet and you can actually make payments prior to getting your cards. As you can see, they're very distinctive colours, which makes it really easy to look through your purse or wallet to find the correct card. So the Starling Kite card looks like this. Now, this is my daughter's card, which looks quite a lot like the personal card with some purple spots on it. Now, personally, I actually think they could make the design of this a lot more kid-like. A lot of other banks have the ability to put your own sort of image on there, or something childlike like some animals or some sort of print, which isn't available at this point. Now, I have spoken to Starling and they have said in the future that is something that they want to do. And actually the functionality of their children's account, the Starling Kite account, at this moment in time is in its really early stages. At the moment they treat it as a space from the adult account, which just doesn't really feel right. It doesn't really feel like a separate actual account, so I don't really see why they've given a card for that. But the reality is they are trying to go into the child banking market. I want to teach my child how to use money correctly, and a part of that is going to be her having a card. She's 7 years old at the moment, but learning how to save money, invest money, spend money correctly, having a card is an important part of that, especially in the future as cash is just disappearing by the day. But it's definitely something I would look at if you have a Starling account. It's an option, and I think it's only going to improve over time, but there are definitely some other options with other banks. Things like Go Henry have a bit more functionality, but there is a fee added to that. Now with Starling, a Starling Kite account does cost you an extra £2 a month. As a company, they are so innovative. I really think that if I stay with them, I really do think actually in the near future that these sort of children's accounts are going to improve drastically. So what are some of the pros with Starling Bank? Well, firstly, and the thing that actually separates them from a lot of other banks, is their 24/7 customer service. And this is available via an online chat service function. And what that means is essentially any time of the day you have any questions or issues with your banking, you can just log on to the app, find the help section and go onto online chat. Now there's not a lot of long queues. Every time I've used this service, it's been very, very quick, and the people have been a lot more helpful than previous high street banks that I've used on the telephone. The security clearance is very, very quick. You're already on the app and you're logged on with your details, so they pretty much know who you are. The second pro for me is the spending insights and notifications that let you know when transactions are made, and the app does a great job of categorizing your spending habits. So what you can do with this is you can review last month's habits and make changes to your budget in sort of real time. You can also manually change the categories within those spending categories too, to make it a bit more accurate should you need to. And the great thing about this is if you use the joint account, such as I do, you actually get a notification anytime in real time when a transaction's made. So it's very easy to spot if there's any sort of fraudulent transactions made, but also you're aware, you have a more conscious awareness of what's happening within your joint account in particular, if you have a partner or spouse that's actually using that card too. And that's obviously not to keep an eye on what they're actually spending, but it keeps you understanding how often you're using your card. And if you see McDonald's popping up on that every couple of days, then you can, have a real honest look at your expenses in real time. Now, another pro that I find, and I thought I'd throw this one in there, is the ability to view and download statements really quickly in a PDF or CSV format. Now, this is a great function as it makes it easy to prove your identity or address if needed for anything, and it's certainly much quicker than any high street bank has done previously because it's done in an instant. The CSV format also makes it easy to share with accounting software such as Xero or QuickBooks. So another pro is that you can pay in checks by uploading a photo inside the app for up to £500. So you don't have to physically send the check at all, and it doesn't take too long to get the money in your account. This is a much quicker process than any previous high street bank, and the funds are in your account much quicker too. So another positive for me is the scheduled payments notification to ensure that you have the correct funds in your account to prevent you going into an overdraft if that is a facility that you use. Now, I would obviously advise not to use an overdraft, but if you do, they can be pretty costly. Now, that's every bank, not just Starling. Starling has quite high overdraft fees, ranging from 15 to 25 to 35%, depending on your credit score. Now, you have, I think the threshold to get an overdraft within Starling is quite high, because my credit rating is pretty good and I've used Starling now for a year, and I've tried the overdraft functionality to see whether I'm eligible a couple of times just to see if I can be, and it always says that I'm not eligible. Now, why that is, I don't know, but it's clearly not a direct correlation to credit rating. Now, another positive, which is actually For me, one of the best ones they have is the safety features within the app, including gambling blocks and optional anti-fraud mechanisms, such as needing to have your phone nearby when your card is used to prevent anybody stealing your card and using without you knowing. And finally, for me, and probably the most useful and the reason why a lot of people flock towards Starling, is the Spaces functionality. Now, Spaces act as sinking funds that are separate money into an area that you can name, put an image to, and motivate you for future or expected expenses such as birthdays, holidays, Christmas, that sort of thing. You can set up a direct payment from your main account that goes into these Spaces every single month, week, or however, whatever sort of time frame that you want. And the good thing about this is when you print out a statement, it does show all the amounts within your Spaces as your overall total. But having it separate means that you can't actually access that money by trying to make a payment on your card. It treats it as money that you can't use. Now, this is a really good psychological trick that prevents, in my opinion, for me, it actually stops me from using that money. Once I've put it into a space, I almost treat it as money that I cannot use. And it's a great trick, and this is such a great innovation with all these new challenger banks such as Starling and other ones like Monzo that use similar sort of things. They all have different names. Starling call it Spaces, Monzo call it Pots, and other banks do have different names for it, but essentially they're all the same thing, and it's a psychological way of preventing yourself from spending money. Okay, so let's look at some of the cons of Starling Bank. Now, the most obvious is that there are no physical branches you can walk into. Now, this may put some people off. I actually quite like this idea, but I've put it down as a con as I can see why some people would be put off by it. The reality is, future is digital, and this actually proved to be a pretty good idea as we're currently in a national lockdown as a result of the pandemic. So another downside to Starling Bank is, in my opinion, their marketplace. It is very limited, and if I'm honest, it seems a bit pointless at this stage. It feels as though they should wait a little bit of time to really improve it before they make it accessible to their customers. Now, the marketplace is used for applying for external things such as insurances, loans. If you go on it, and I'll show you on the screen beside me here, there isn't really much to it. And I just don't really see why that functionality is available. I'd really like them to improve that, just like they have done with everything else within their app, and then release it then. And the final downside to Starling Bank, in my opinion, is the fact that you have to deposit cash at a post office. On the plus side, however, there are a lot of post offices, probably more so than a lot of your high street banks if you are still with one. In fact, the process is quite simple. They don't really ask many questions. When you go, you just hand them over some money, put your card into the chip and pin reader, say yes, and it's in your account straight away. However, I can see why people would think it's a bit of an inconvenience, depending on where you live, to have to go to a post office to deposit cash, especially with a lot of banks having the ability to put it in an envelope and put it into an ATM. Now you're going to have to do that whilst a post office is open. So to conclude, in my opinion, Starling are a great bank. That is a statement that I never thought I would really say, and the truth is they actually make high street banks look pretty ancient in the way they do things. They're a very innovative bank, and I believe that Starling really are the bank of the future. If they continue to adapt to their customer feedback and iron out the problems that people come across as the bank is progressing, they're only going to get stronger and stronger. And people are definitely speculating that as Starling get bigger, they're going to certainly be more attractive to high street banks and potentially be swallowed up in some sort of takeover deal. Now let's hope that's not the case. So overall, I give Starling Bank a 9 out of 10. That is quite a high rating. I think there's definitely some room for improvement, but as far as banks go, Starling is brilliant. Now, I never really thought I'd have that much of a strong opinion for a bank. I've always had high street or big four banks in the past, and I've always just thought of them as this really old institution that just do things a certain way. And banks like Starling and other challenger banks too have really shown that banking doesn't have to be like that. They can be innovative and they can actually listen to their customers. Previously, it's felt like banks are really just there about the money, and don't get me wrong, banks are there to make a profit at the end of the day, but it really does feel like Starling want to actually improve the way their customers' experience flows from the beginning through to the end, and they are continuously adding new things and new tools to help people with their finances. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up below. I'll be uploading content every single week, so be sure to subscribe to my channel and you'll be notified when I upload more videos. I create content about everything personal finance. So please take a look at my other videos and share with friends and family that you think will benefit from this information.